Since we already accept the engagement, nalatig na natin, nakagawa ng engagement letter, we will now proceed with the second step, which is yung audit planning. So, ano po ba ginagawa sa audit planning? So, sabi daw, audit planning involves developing a general audit strategy and a detailed approach for the expected conduct of the audit. So, the auditor's main objective in planning the audit is to determine the scope of the audit procedures to be performed. So again, ang purpose ng audit planning is to determine the scope of the audit procedure. Procedures to be performed. So the auditor should plan the audit work so that the audit will be performed in an effective and efficient manner. So, bakit daw po ba importante yung adequate planning of the audit? So, yung planning, it helps to ensure that appropriate attention is devoted to important areas of the audit. Baka kasi mayroon tayong ma-miss out. O di kaya, baka may ginagawa tayo, tapos kalagitnaan ng audit natin, nakita natin na ay parang hindi appropriate itong ginagawa natin. So, di ba? Para hindi masayang yung oras. Also, it helps identify potential problems. So, tinitingnan na natin, ano ba yung mga possible problems sa pwede natin ma-encounter. Para at least makakapagplano na tayo. So, makakapagplano tayo para ma-address yung mga nakita nating potential problems. Also, it allows the work to be completed expeditiously. It also assists in the proper assignment and coordination of work. And then lastly, it helps ensure that the audit is conducted effectively and efficiently. So sabi daw, under PSA 315, it requires the auditor to obtain sufficient understanding of the entity and its environment, including its internal control. So such understanding involves obtaining knowledge about the entity's industry, regulatory, and other external factors. Also, it also helps to obtain knowledge about the nature of the entity, yung objectives and strategies, and the related business risks, pati na rin po yung measurement and review of the entity's performance, and then lastly, internal controls. So, lahat po yun, malalaman natin during the audit planning. So, pag-usapan natin is yung understanding the entity and its environment. So, parang ito yung first part ng ating audit planning. So, syempre, it is important to have knowledge about the client's business and industry. Kasi, from this knowledge that we have, mas madali tayong makakapagplano or mas madali natin mailalatag yung audit na gagawin natin. Kasi nga, once we know or once we have knowledge about the client's business and industry, mas madali natin makikita yung mga possible or potential problems. And from that, alam na natin kung ano yung magiging possible audit procedures na gagawin natin para ma-resolve yun or ma-ensure na ma-detect natin yung mga problema na yun. So, it is our task as an auditor to identify and understand the events, transactions, and practices that may have a significant effect on the financial statements. So, paano siya kinoconduct? Pwedeng inquiry about sa client natin. Sometimes, we also do research regarding sa company na yon. Baka mayroong mga articles na mahalaga na makakatulong sa atin para mas lalo natin maintindihan yung business tsaka yung anong klaseng industry ba yung client natin. So, kapag daw po kasi naiintindihan ni auditor yung operations ng client, so, si auditor, mas madali niya ma-evaluate yung reasonableness of the client's estimates. So, di ba, merong mga accounts na ginagamitan ng estimates or accounting estimates. So, from that, madali na natin masabi na, okay, reasonable naman pala yung estimate na ginagawa nila. Kasi ganito yung ginagawa nila or normal na nilang ginagawa sa kanilang operations. And then, kung titignan natin yung mga ibang companies na merong same industry sa client na ino-audit natin, ganun din pala yung way ng pag-estimate nila. Kaya, it's important to understand the entity's business and also its industry. So, knowledge of the entity will also include understanding the entity's objectives and strategies and the related business risks. So, an auditor's understanding of business risks encountered by the entity increases the likelihood of identifying risk of material misstatement and helps the auditor design appropriate audit procedures. Furthermore, the auditor should obtain understanding of entities' measurement of performance, as this may create pressures on the entity that may either motivate management to take action to improve the business performance or to manipulate the financial statements. So, para magkaroon tayo ng knowledge about the entity's business and its industry, ano po ba yung mga possible source of information natin? So, pwedeng i-check yung prior year's working papers. Kasi, sabi ko nga, yung understanding ng entity is part of the audit planning, which is, naka-document po yan. Kaya, kung titignan natin yung previous year na working paper, then makikita natin kung paano ba nag-ooperate itong business na to. Also, we can do tour of the client's facilities. So, usually, madalang itong mangyari. Pero siguro, meron din namang mga engagement team na ginagawa to sa kanilang client. So, we also do discussion with people within and outside the entity. So, as ito nga, we also read books, periodicals, and other publications related to the client's industry. And we also read corporate documents and financial reports. So, for example, di ba, may isa sa mga naging client ko, si ADB. Since kilalang kilala si Asian Development Bank, marami siyang articles. And from that, nakikita na natin, anong klaseng bank ba si Asian Development Bank? Commercial bank ba siya? Ano ba yung purpose niya? Paano ba siya nagbibigay ng pera sa mga tao? So, nagbibigay ba siya ng pera sa tao mismo? Ano yun naman nag-deposit sa kanya? So, meron silang website. And from that, kahit di natin tanungan yung client natin, kung babasahin lang natin yung mismong articles o yung mismong website nila, malalaman na natin kung paano ba nag-ooperate si Asian Development Bank. So, sabi daw, si auditor, kailangan niya rin ensure na yung mga assistants assigned to an audit engagement obtain sufficient knowledge of the client's business and industry to enable them to carry out the work delegated to them. Kasi hindi naman hindi dapat na tayo lang na auditor yung merong idea regarding sa business and industry ni client. So, kailangan yung lahat ng tao or lahat ng staffs na magiging involved doon sa audit procedures or audit process na i-conduct natin doon sa client natin, meron din silang enough knowledge about doon sa client. So, bakit po ba, again, mabalik tayo, bakit po ba kailangan natin malaman bakit ba kailangan natin maintindihan yung mismong entity about sa paano ba yung business niya, paano siya nag-ooperate, ano bang klaseng industry siya. So, bakit ba natin kailangan malaman yon? So, sabi daw, by obtaining the knowledge about the client's business, it will help us to assess the risk and identify potential problems. So, makikita nga natin, ano ba yung mga possible inherent risks regarding on that. So, during the audit planning, magko-conduct na kasi tayo ng risk assessment procedures na tinatawag o yung RAP. So, risk assessment procedures. So, mamaya itatakal natin ano ba tong risk assessment procedures. So, from that, malalaman na kasi natin or magkakaroon na tayo ng idea about sa possible risk na pwede natin ma-encounter. Kasi baka naman, 'di ba? Ano ba yung mga inherent risks na nakapaloob doon? Na kahit anong gawin natin, kahit anong klaseng ingat na gawin natin, kahit ibigay natin yung best natin, there's still instances kung saan na hindi natin madedetect yung mga possible na material misstatements. So, by understanding their business or the client's business and industry, madali na natin mapinpoint na, okay, bank to. So, medyo mataas dapat ang risk sa cash. Kasi nga, di ba? Yung mga employees, they are motivated to appropriate or misappropriate cash. At the same time, madali natin ma-assess din yung mga possible problems for that. And then, another reason, of course, kung meron tayong enough knowledge sa client's business, mas madali tayong makapagplano and perform the audit effectively and efficiently. Madali natin ma-evaluate yung mga audit evidence as well as the reasonableness of the client's representations and estimates. And then lastly, we can provide better service to the client. So to make effective use of knowledge in the client's business and industry, the auditor should consider how it affects the financial statements and whether the assertions in the financial statements are consistent with the auditor's knowledge of business. So again, para daw po maging effective yung paggamit natin ng knowledge natin about the client's business and industry, kailangan makonsider natin etong knowledge na nakuha natin. Paano ba ito makaka-apekto sa financial statements? At the same time, since we already have the knowledge about the client's business and industry, mas madali na natin malaman ano-ano po bang mga assertions yung dapat nating piliin or dapat nating makita. So, obtaining understanding of the client's business is a continuous and cumulative process. So, for continuing engagements, the auditor should update and evaluate information gathered previously and including information in the prior year's working papers. So, additional consideration sa mga new engagements. So, a first-time audit requires more work than a repeat engagement because the problem associated with the verification of the opening balances of the balance sheet accounts. So, syempre, expect natin na kung this is first-time audit or first time lang natin i-audit yung client na to, then malaki possibility na mas marami tayong audit procedures na gagawin. Kasi nga, pati yung mga opening balances, kailangan natin i-ensure na tama. So, sabi daw, in this regard, PSA 510 requires the auditor obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence that the opening balances do not contain misstatements that materially affect the current year's financial statements. Also, the prior period's closing balances have been correctly brought forward to the current period or when appropriate have been stated. And then lastly, appropriate accounting policies are consistently applied or changes in accounting policies have been properly accounted for and adequately disclosed. Then next, we also need to understand. So bukod sa understanding the entity, we also need to understand yung internal controls ng client natin. Kasi nga, meron din pong risk pagdating sa internal controls. And usually, yung internal controls, yung makakatulong sa atin kung gaano ba ka-extensive, gaano ba kahaba, or gaano ba kadaming samples yung kailangan nating gamitin once we conduct the audit procedures. So, sabi daw, the auditor should obtain an understanding of the accounting and internal control systems sufficient to plan the audit and develop an effective audit approach. So, isipin nyo kasi yung internal control para lang yung pangsala. 'Di ba? So, kung maganda yung internal controls, meaning nasasala niya talaga mabuti yung mga material statements. So, nasasala niya. And then, yung mga magagandang information, tagang yun lang yung pumapasok. Kasi kapag naman pangit, yung internal controls, meaning hindi niya nasasalang mabuti yung mga material statements, then, makikita talaga natin na pati yung mga material statements nakakalusot. So, yung mga material statements nakakalusot siya dun sa internal control together with the other factual and appropriate informations. So, kung maganda yung internal controls, hindi na ganong masyadong ka-extensive yung magiging audit natin. Unlike kapag pangit yung internal controls. So, paano din malalaman na pangit or maganda yung internal controls? So, before tayo makapag-conduct or bago natin ma-assess yung control risk, kailangan maintindihan muna natin paano ba nag-work out itong internal controls nila. Kasi, maraming internal controls na ginagamit yung bawat clients. So, yung bawat company, they uses different internal controls. Hindi siya pare-pareho. Possibly, may times sa pare-pareho yung internal controls na ginagamit nila. Pero most of the time, iba yung internal controls ng isang company, iba din yung internal controls ng isang company. So, before we assess the control risk for that certain internal controls, we must understand first, paano ba siya nag-work? Diba? Paano ba design neto? Yung mga ganon. So, after we understand the internal control, we develop an overall audit strategy. So, once the auditor has gained a sufficient understanding about the entity and its environment, including its internal control, so the auditor should formulate an overall audit strategy for the upcoming event. So, again, sa audit planning natin, mag-i-start tayo sa understanding ng entity and its environment. And then, kasama rin nun, iintindihan din natin yung kanilang internal controls. Yung pangatlo na po, is in pag-develop ng audit strategy. So, the best audit strategy is the approach that results in the most efficient audit. That is, an effective audit performed at the least possible cost. Kasi, actually maganda na kailangan effective talaga yung audit process natin. But at the same time, we must not compromise the efficiency. Kasi, di ba, sa sobrang effective, sa sobrang accurate ng audit procedures natin, deadline na, kailangan na pala ng client natin yung audited financial statements. But hindi pa tapos yung audit procedures na ginagawa natin. So, paano tayo makakapagbigay ng audit opinion kung hindi pa yari yung ating audit na ginagawa or audit procedures na ginagawa natin? So, hindi maganda yung sobrang effective pero hindi tayo efficient. Dapat balance lang between effectivity and efficiency. So, under audit plan, it should be made regarding how much evidence to accumulate. So, gaano bang evidence yung kailangan natin? So, how much evidence to accumulate? And then, how and when this should be done. So, when developing an audit strategy, the auditor must consider carefully the appropriate levels of materiality and audit risk. So, sabi daw, di ba? When developing an audit strategy, daw pong kailangan i-consider carefully. So, ano po yung dalawa na yon? So, una, yung appropriate levels of materiality. And then, pangalawa, yung audit risk. So, punta na tayo sa materiality. Ano daw po ba yung materiality? So, materiality is defined in the Financial Reporting Standard Council's framework that that if the information is material, its omission or misstatement could influence economic decision of users taken on the basis of the financial statements. So as we see, walang exact definition yung materiality. So wala siyang exact number or exact percentage para malaman natin kung material ba. So ang tanging consideration lang natin para masabi natin material yung amount is kapag ba na-omit to o kaya merong misstatements regarding dito, is malaki ba yung magiging influence niya dun sa economic decision ng users the moment na mag-rely sila dun sa financial statements. So, in designing an audit plan, the auditor should make preliminary estimate of materiality. So, again, we already make preliminary estimate of materiality. But take note, the moment na na-estimate na natin, hindi na po hihinto doon. Meaning, kapag naset na natin yung materiality nung preliminary, is hanggang dulo or hanggang mayari yung materiality natin, is yun na po yung amount. So, kung during the audit, meron tayong mapansin at meron tayong malawang mga other factors na pwede makapagbago ng materiality, we will still consider that. Eh, mababago na yung materiality. So, para maapekto na po yung mga naging procedures natin or audit procedures for different accounts, yes. And we have no choice for that. Since, kaya natin i-consider itong bagong information na magkakaroon siya ng effect sa materiality, so, i-reflect natin. And then, after that, tsaka natin i-adjust yung mga audit procedures na na-conduct natin or na na-conduct natin for different accounts. So, the concept of materiality recognizes that some matters are important for fair presentation of financial statements, while other matters are not important. So, sabi daw, materiality may be viewed as the largest amount of misstatement that the auditor could tolerate in the financial statements, or the smallest aggregate amount that could misstate the financial statements. So, again, yung largest amount of misstatement. That the auditor could tolerate in the financial statements. O di kaya, yung smallest aggregate amount. That could misstate the financial statements. So, materiality is a matter of professional judgment and necessarily involves quantitative factors, which is yung amount of the item in relation to the financial statements, pati na rin po yung mga qualitative factors such as the nature of statement. So, bakit po ba importante ang materiality? So, the reason for that is because it determines the amount of evidence to accumulate. And actually, kung meron kasi tayong misstatement at hindi naman siya material, then we can disregard those amounts. So, ang kinoconsider lang natin misstatements is yung material enough para masabi natin na it can influence the economic decision of users the moment na mag-rely sila doon sa financial statements. So, kung hindi naman material effect niya sa financial statements, meaning kahit may ganong klaseng misstatement, pero hindi naman makaka-apekto sa decision ng mga users natin, then we can disregard that. So, usually, depending yan sa amount, meaning, kung ang company meron siyang asset with a total of 1 billion, yung misstatement na 10,000, it can be considered as immaterial. Kasi imagine yung total asset. Sabihin natin, ang total cash nung ino-audit natin is 1 billion. Tapos, nung ino-audit natin yung cash, nagkaroon ng misstatement na 10,000. So, sa mata natin, malaki yung 10,000, tama. But, considering yung nature ng account or ng cash account, pati yung amount niya, paano masasabi natin na immaterial yung misstatement na 10,000? So, we can disregard that. So, sabi daw, there is an inverse relationship between materiality and evidence. So, meaning, habang bumababa yung materiality, so, meaning, mas maraming evidence yung kailangan nating maibigay. Kasi 'di ba, let's say, kung materiality natin is 100,000. Lahat ng mga misstatements that below 100,000, pwede na nating i-disregard. Meaning, hindi na natin kailangan mag-collect ng enough evidence para mapatunayan natin na hindi talaga misstatement yung 100,000 na nakita natin. So, sabihin natin, may misstatement na 90,000. So, lumagpas po ba siya sa materiality natin na 100,000? Hindi po. So, since this 90,000 is hindi lumagpas do sa ating materiality, we can say that this amount is immaterial. And since immaterial siya, magkoconduct ka ba ba ng audit procedures for that 90,000? Magko-collect ka ba ng enough evidence para do sa 90,000 na yon? Hindi na po. So, gagawin natin, i-disregard lang natin. What if ang materiality natin is not 100,000 but rather 50,000? So, as you see, mas lumiit ang materiality. And since ang nakita nating misstatement is 90,000, lagpas na do sa ating materiality, then we need now to conduct further testing. So, kailangan ma-ensure taga natin na itong 90,000 is may reason kung bakit nagkaroon ng difference ng 90,000. Kasi baka pala, statement yan. Or worse, hindi siya simply error. Parang manipulated pala yung amount, kaya nagkaroon ng difference ng 90,000. So as you see, habang bumababa yung materiality, tumataas naman yung evidence na kailangan nating makuha once we conduct the audit process for certain accounts. So, uses daw ng materiality tuwing kailan? Una, planning stage. Para malaman natin yung scope ng audit procedures. And then, pangalawa, we also conduct it at the completion phase. So, bakit naman? Para ma-evaluate natin yung effect ng misstatements on the financial statements. Okay, so proceed tayo sa levels. Paano ba natin ma-determine yung materiality? So, meron daw po tayong step 1 and step 2. So, una, yung step 1 natin, is to determine the overall materiality on the financial statement level. So, materiality, financial statement level. So, dito, aalamin natin or i-determine natin magkano ba yung amount of misstatement that could be material to the financial statement taken as a whole. Kasi 'di ba, kung masyadong mababa yung materiality level natin, parang nagsasayang tayo ng oras na kaka-audit ng mga accounts na hindi naman pala importante. Pero kapag naman masyadong mataas, then as an auditor, baka hindi naman natin ma-detect yung mga misstatements na material pala sa mga users once they decide or once they rely dun sa financial statements kapag gumagawa sila ng economic decision. So that's why yung first step natin, magsiset tayo ng overall materiality. So for this reason, kailangan nating i-determine or kailangan nating i-consider yung materiality in terms of the smallest aggregate level of misstatement. So again, sa step 1, kapag dinetermine natin yung overall materiality FS level, i-consider natin yung smallest aggregate that could distort any one of the financial statements. So, pwede rin gamitin yung percentage of total assets, percentage of total net income, o di kaya percentage of sales. So, of course, yung assets, net income, of sales, pwede natin siyang pagbisan sa last year na financial statements, sa interim na financial statements, o di kaya sa budgeted FS. So, for example, ang gagamitin natin is percentage of net income. And then, sabi natin, sabi natin, 2.5 million yung profit or net income. And then, sabi natin, ang materiality natin will be at 25% of the net income. So, magkano po yung ating materiality? 250,000. So, meaning, ito po yung magiging materiality level or overall materiality FS level. So, ito na yung smallest aggregate level of misstatement na pwedeng mag-distort doon sa ating financial statements. And then, from that 250,000, tsaka po natin yung paghahati-hatian sa bawat account. So, once we determine the overall materiality, we will now proceed with the step 2. So, yung step 2 naman po natin is determine the tolerable misstatement. O tinatawag nating performance materiality. Ito na yung account balance level. So, 'di ba, na-determine natin yung overall materiality. So, gagawin naman natin, i-allocate natin yan sa different accounts. So, sabihin natin, meron tayong cash, meron tayong AR, meron tayong inventory, meron tayong PPE. And then, sabihin natin, yung account balances nila is 500,000 for cash, 250,000 for AR, 250,000 for inventory, and then 1.5 million for PPE. O ngayon, etong 250,000, hatiin natin to sa bawat accounts. So, sabihin natin, since masyadong mataas yung risk pagdating sa cash, sabihin natin 100,000 yung allocated na tolerable misstatement. Excuse me lang po. So, since, balik tayo, sabi natin, si cash account kasi, since mataas yung inherent risk niyan, malaki possibility na ma-misappropriate yan, medyo mataas yung tolerable misstatement na ilalagay natin. Di mataas, but rather mababa. Kasi nga, since malaki yung risk na misappropriate yan, kailangan natin ng maraming evidence para ma-ensure na tama yung cash account. So, dahil dyan, mababa yung performance materiality na ilalagay natin for cash account. So, meaning, mababa yung tolerable misstatements na ilalagay natin sa cash account. For AR account naman, sabihin natin, okay, 75,000. Tapos, for inventory, nakita natin, for example, parang hindi man madaling ma-misappropriate yung inventory. So, sige, taasan natin yung tolerable misstatement o yung performance materiality for that. And then, lastly, sa PPE, lagay natin 25,000. So, kapag tinotal natin yan, equal yan doon sa overall materiality natin na 250,000. So, ang bottom line, ang step 1 natin dito, bottom line, to summarize. So, kapag gumagawa tayo ng materiality, una, aalamin muna natin yung overall materiality. So, FS level, titingnan natin yung buong financial statements. So, pag naset na natin yung overall materiality, itong overall materiality, ito na po yung i-allocate natin sa bawat account. So, aalamin na natin yung performance materiality. Meaning, nasa account balances level na po tayo. So, ilan lang po ba or gaano kalaki ba yung misstatements na kaya kong i-tolerate for each account? So, ano po ba yung mga bases that can be used to determine the materiality level? So, sabi daw, since audit planning is often performed before year-end, annual financial statements are usually not available. So, as a result, the auditor uses alternative bases to compute for the materiality levels, such as yung interim financial statements, prior year's financial statements, and then lastly, budgeted financial statements. So, itong sinasabi ko, katulad lang siya sinabi ko kanina dito. Diba sa step 1, kapag dinetermine natin yung overall materiality. So, ang basis natin, pwedeng percentage of total assets, percentage of net income, and percentage of sales. Ang pinaka-common po is percentage of net income. O ngayon, sa ating kukunin yung figures ng total assets, kung yun yung pipili natin, o di kaya yung figures ng net income, kung percentage of net income yung gagamitin natin. Wala pa nga tayong financial statement for that year. Kasi nga, yun pa yung ina-audit natin. Susunod na po. Pag ganon, ang gagamitin natin is either prior year FS, kung meron sila, o kaya baka naman meron silang interim FS. So, pwede natin gawing basis yun. And then, kung wala, yung budgeted FS na ginagawa nila. So, usually, gumagawa po kasi ng budgeted FS yung management. At gumagawa rin naman po sila ng strategies. So, di ba? Napag-aralan nyo yun pagdating sa management accounting. Na usually, kapag at the start of the year, since meron silang certain goal na gusto nilang ma-achieve for that year, gumagawa sila ng budgeted FS. Once na maset natin yung materiality, punta na tayo sa auditries. So, ano po ba ulit yung auditries? So, ito na tayo. Ito yun, sa pangalawa na tayo. Auditries. So, again, pag sinabi nating auditries, ito yung risk. Kung saan the auditor gives an inappropriate audit opinion on the financial statements. So, usually, si auditor, they should use professional judgment to assess audit risk and to design audit procedures to ensure it is reduced to an acceptably low level. And sa audit risk natin, we follow the audit risk model. So, meaning, abangin ko na last time, pero ang audit risk natin will be equal sa inherent risk, multiply sa control risk, multiply sa detection risk. And then, itong audit risk natin, it complement siya sa assurance na kaya nating ibigay. Kaya nga kung makapagbigay tayo ng 90% reasonable assurance, then 10% yung audit risk na meron tayo. O ano naman yung reasonable assurance? So sabi daw, pag sinabi nating reasonable assurance, the auditor cannot possibly expect to detect all materials statement. Instead, the auditor should perform audit procedures to increase the likelihood of detecting this misstatement. Again, reasonable lang po ang kaya nating ibigay. We cannot give 100% or absolute assurance. Kasi nga, meron talagang mga limitations. Kung saan kahit gawin na natin buong best natin, ibigin na natin, di tayo matulog, tumira na tayo sa client's office, still possible na meron di tayong hindi ma-detect na statements. Kaya we can only give reasonable assurance. And yung percentage ng reasonable assurance na ibibigay natin, yung difference, yun naman yung level ng audit risk na existing sa ating audit procedure. So, i-explain na po natin ano po si inherent risk. So, sabi daw, inherent risk is the susceptibility of an account balance or class of transactions to a material misstatements assuming that there were no related internal controls. So, take note lang po, no? After po kasi ng materiality, we will now proceed with risk assessment procedures. So, ito na po si RAP. Kung saan, aalamin na natin yung mga risk. So, una, ma-assess po natin kasi si inherent risk and control risk. So, una, since nasa first part pa lang po tayo ng audit planning, we can now assess the inherent risk. So, again, babalik tayo sa definition ng inherent risk. It is the susceptibility of an account balance or class of transactions to a material misstatements assuming that there were no related internal controls. So, usually, ang tinitingnan kasi natin dito is yung nature ng mga account balances. So, after considering the nature of the business, a client's business and industry, we also consider the nature of the accounts. From that, nakikita natin yung inherent risk. So, bibigay ko yung pinamagandang example sa account balances. Kanina ko pa sinasabi, cash. Mataas pa talaga yung inherent risk nun. Why? Kasi nga alam natin na madaling i-misappropriate yung cash. Bukod sa gustong-gusto talaga ng tao ang pera, madali po kasi siyang itago. So, madali siyang ibulsa. So, di ba, example ko dyan, ikaw, minsan ka nang nakadekwat sa bulsa ng magulang mo ng pera. So, imagine, bata ka pa lang nun, nakadekwat ka na ng pera. What more pa kapag matanda ka na? At kaya mo ng paraanan para makonceal yung pagnanakaw na ginawa mo. That's why mataas po yung inherent risk pagdating sa cash. So, ano po ba yung mga factors na nakaka-affect sa risk of misstatement at the financial statements level? So, of course, the management integrity. Baka naman medyo hindi kilala na tong management na nagmamanipulate. O, dahil doon, medyo tumataas ang inherent risk. Also, the management characteristic, in a sense na aggressive attitude nila toward financial reporting, meaning, talagang i-measure nila na maganda yung kanilang financial statements. So, dahil dyan, medyo aggressive yung approach nila. Parang lahat gagawin nila para maging maganda yung result ng kanilang financial statements. We also consider yung operating characteristics, meaning yung profitability of the entity relative to its industry is inadequate, and then also the industry characteristics. Yun namang inherent risk at the account level, yung mga factors na nakaka-affect sa inherent risk at the account balance level includes susceptibility of the account to theft. Yung madaling manakaw ba? Pangalawa, complexity of calculations related to account. So, magandang example dyan, ECL or expected credit losses. Mahirap po kasing computein yun. And usually, yung mga company, kumukuha pa sila ng expert para at least makompute yung kanilang expected credit losses. We also consider the complexity underlying transactions and other events. And then lastly, the degree of judgment involved in determining account balances. So, once na ma-assess na natin yung inherent risk, so sabi natin, mataas. Di ba natin malalaman kung ano yung detection risk? Again, ito po yung ina-assess, no? Kasi, hindi po natin yan kayang kontrolin. Unlike pagdating mamaya sa detection risk, malalaman nyo na yan lang po ang katangi-tanging risk na pwedeng kontrolin ng auditor. So, pwede siyang kontrolin ng auditor. So, ito po yung reason. Kaya naririnig nyo lagi or nababasa nyo lagi na assess level of inherent risk or assess level of detection risk. Of control risk. So, wala kayong mababasa na assessed level of detection risk. Kasi hindi po yan ina-assess. Kinokontrol natin yan. Punta naman tayo sa control risk. But before that, kapag pumataas po kasi ang inherent risk, meaning po niyan, so, if mataas ang inherent risk, mataas din po ang possibly mataas din ang detection risk. Mababa rather. Pero sige, mamaya na. Pag mataas ang inherent risk natin or mataas yung assessed level of inherent risk, ang ibig sabihin lang po nun is si auditor o tayong auditor, kailangan mag-design tayo ng more effective substantive procedures. So again, pag mataas ang assessed level of inherent risk, then more effective audit procedures yung kailangan nating gawin. Okay. Ano naman po yung control risk? So, sabi daw, control risk is the risk that material misstatement that could occur in an account balance or class of transactions will not be prevented or detected and corrected on a timely basis by accounting and internal control systems. So, sinasabi lang naman po, under control risk, meron ang controls or meron internal controls yung client natin. Pero, hindi kasi, or hindi na-detect na internal controls yung mga possible material misstatements. So, kapag hindi kayang i-detect or hindi na-detect nung internal controls ng client yung material misstatements, then, ang assessment natin will be increase or pataas sa control risk. Masyado mataas yung risk na internal controls is hindi madedetect yung yung mga material misstatements. And then, katulad lang po ng inherent risk, the more na tumataas yung ating control risk, then, kailangan mag-design pa tayo ng more effective na audit procedures. So, once na ma-assess natin yung inherent risk and control risk, then, pwede na po natin malaman or ma-determine yung acceptable level of detection risk. So, ano po ba yung detection risk? So, sabi daw, it is the risk that an auditor's substantive procedure will not detect a material statement. So, detection risk is a function of the effectiveness of the auditor's substantive procedures. So, pag sinabi natin detection risk, tayo na po yan. Baka naman yung mga substantive procedures na i-conduct natin, hindi niya kayang i-detect yung mga material misstatements. And then, ang interpretation po natin sa detection risk, the more na bumababa yung detection risk. So, pag ganun, mas kailangan pa nating gumawa or mag-design ng more effective audit procedures. So, from this, you can say na yung inherent risk natin has inverse relationship with detection risk. Same as to control risk. Yung control risk natin, meron siyang inverse relationship with the detection risk. Kasi kapag tumataas yung inherent risk, bumababa yung detection risk. Kasi, di ba, kapag mababa ang detection risk, then, si auditor, kailangan pa natin mag-design ng mas marami at mas effective na audit procedures. So, kapag mababa yung detection risk, so, nasabi ko ito last time, yung nature, timing, and extent. So, ibig sabihin, mataas ang inherent risk, mataas ang control risk, mababa yung detection risk. So, yung nature, kailangan more effective. So, more effective. So, yung audit procedures natin, it should be more effective and more extensive. Tapos, yung timing naman ng audit procedures natin, will be performed at year-end. Meaning, kapag nag-audit tayo, i-cover natin yung lahat ng transactions from day 1 hanggang sa day 365. So, yung buong taon. And then, we will also use larger samples pagdating sa extent. What if naman nangyari, mababa yung inherent risk? So, meaning, mababa lang yung risk na hindi susceptible sa misappropriation or misstatement yung mga accounts. Mababa rin yung control risk. Meaning, mababa yung risk na hindi madedetect ng internal controls ng client natin yung mga material misstatement. So, dahil dyan, since meron silang inverse relationship with the detection risk, mag-i-increase naman po yung detection risk natin. So, ano naman magiging nature, timing, and extent kapag pag mataas yung detection risk natin. So, in nature, it will be less effective or less extensive. Yung timing naman, then we can perform audit procedures at interim. And then yung extent naman po, kahit lesser samples na yung gamitin natin. Since hindi naman ganun kataas yung inherent and control risk. So, ang computation po natin ng audit risk, again, audit risk is equals to inherent risk, multiply sa control risk, multiply sa detection risk. So, from that, para malaman natin yung percentage of detection risk, ang formula natin will be audit risk over inherent risk multiply sa control risk. So, ganyan po yung ating audit, itong model na to, or itong formula na to, we call it audit risk model. So, yan po itatawag nating audit risk model. So, ano po yung relationship ng materiality natin tsaka ng risk? So, when planning the audit, the auditor considers what would make the financial statements materially misstated. So, the auditor's assessment of materiality related to a specific account help the auditor select audit procedures that can be expected to reduce audit risk to an acceptable level. So, dahil dyan, it is safe to say ng relationship ng materiality and audit risk is inverse. Kasi di ba sabi natin, materiality and evidence, ang kanilang relationship, inverse. The more na lumiliit ang materiality, tumataas yung evidence na kailangan nating makuha. So, in relation sa audit risk, kapag lumalaki or dumadami yung evidence na natin makuha, ang ibig sabihin lang po nun is tumataas po kasi yung audit risk. And since tumataas yung audit risk, meaning tumataas yung risk na hindi natin madedetect yung material misstatements. So, anong gagawin natin? We will conduct more audit procedures. That's why yung materiality, meron po siyang inverse relationship with the audit risk. The more na lumiliit na materiality, tumataas naman po yung level of audit risk. And since tumataas yung level ng audit risk, ibig sabihin yan, more evidence po yung kailangan nating makuha. So, kung gusto natin babaan naman yung audit risk, anong gagawin natin? So, kung gusto natin siyang babaan, yung audit risk, pwede natin gawin, babaan din natin yung assess level of control risk. So, bakit? Kasi kapag mababa yung assess level of control risk, we may conduct test of control. So, dahil dyan, kapag nakapag-conduct tayo ng test of control, and na-ensure natin na pwede tayong mag-rely sa internal controls ng company, then pwede natin bawasan or pwede natin bawasan yung magiging audit procedures natin. And since babawasan natin yung audit procedures, so kukunti yung evidence na kailangan natin makuha. Another thing, babawasan mo na yung detection risk. So either babawasan mo yung detection risk. So again, yung audit risk, siya magsasabi ng nature, extent, and timing ng audit procedures natin. So, it will determine pwedeng dun sa assess level control risk o di kaya dun sa detection risk. So, kung pagbabanggain natin, materiality, audit risk, and then plan audit procedures. So, kung mababa ang materiality, mataas ang audit risk. So, dahil dyan, more extensive yung ating audit procedures. And since more extensive, meaning i-perform natin siya at year-end, and then more samples yung gagamitin natin. Pag naman mataas na materiality, then mababa ang audit risk, so less extensive naman po tayo. So, meaning po niyan, pwede tayo mag-perform at interim, o di kaya, less samples na lang yung gagamitin natin. So, another procedures na ginagawa natin under risk assessment procedure is yung inquiries of management and others within the entity, yung analytical procedures, and observation and inspection. So, di ba, na-understand na natin, na-assess na rin natin yung risk. Punta naman tayo sa other pang risk assessment procedures. So, it includes inquiries of management, analytical procedures, o yung tawag natin preliminary analytical procedures, and then lastly, observation and inspection. So for analytical procedures, it involves analysis of significant ratios and trends, including the resulting investigation of fluctuations and relationships that are inconsistent with other relevant information or deviate from predicted amounts. So, sabi daw, a basic premise underlying the use of analytical procedures is that plausible relationships among data may reasonably be expected to exist and continue in the absence of known conditions to the contrary. So, mamaya, sa mga susunod discussion, makikita naman natin na yung analytical procedure, hindi lang po yan ginagamit sa planning phase o sa risk assessment procedure. We also conduct analytical procedures sa substantive testing, pati na rin po sa final phase or wrap-up procedures. So, ano po ba yung mga steps pag-apply ng analytical procedures? So, una, we develop expectations regarding financial statements using yung prior year's financial statements o di kaya yung mga anticipated results such as budgets or forecasts. Pwede rin po yung mga industry averages, yung mga non-financial information o di kaya yung mga typical relationships among financial statement account balances. And then once we develop expectations regarding the financial statements, we will now compare the expectations with the financial statements under audit. So, dito, di ba, i-compare na po ni auditor yung mga in-expect nating financial statements para dun sa actual amount na nasa financial statements. Para malaman natin or ma-identify natin kung meron bang significant fluctuations. So, di ba nga yung example ko last time, for example, yung cash natin is 100,000 for the prior year, And then, for the second year, naging 200,000. So, nagkaroon ng increase na 100%. So, that is considered as significant fluctuation. Kasi bakit nag-increase ng 100% yung cash natin? So, from that, diba, magkakaroon na tayo ng preliminary assessment for that cash account. So, mataas ba yung risk ng account na to or hindi? And then lastly, once we determine na merong significant fluctuations, so, i-investigate natin. Ano ba yung reason? Kung bakit nag-increase? And then, pwede ma-determine natin na, kaya naman pala nag-increase. Kasi merong collections na nangyari during the year. So, from that, we can say na, okay, reasonable naman yung pag-increase ng cash. What if wala naman palang naging collections? So, baka nagkaroon ng inflow or baka tumaas yung cash account. So, yung analytical procedures na ginagamit sa planning audit should focus on enhancing the auditor's understanding of the client's business and identify the areas that may represent specific risk. Kasi, di ba, since tinitingnan natin yung bawat accounts. So, for example, merong miscellaneous liability. From the last year, wala naman yon. From this year, biglang nagkaroon ng amount, yung miscellaneous liability. Tapos, sabihin natin, ang amount is 1 billion. O, diba? Medyo maa-alarma tayo. So, dahil doon, sasabihin natin, mukhang mataas ang risk for miscellaneous liability. Kung last year, hindi natin siya in-audit kasi wala namang laman, this year, i-audit natin yan. Kaya natin ma-ensure natin, ano ba pinanggalingan ng 1 billion na yan? So, meron bang valid contract or valid agreement for that? Kaya nag-create niya ng obligation sa part ni client. So, i-audit natin yun. So, ang setup po kasi ng analytical procedures is una, di ba yung step 1 natin? Compare yung financial statements with expectation. Then, after nun, i-determine natin, step 2, determine natin yung difference between expectation and then yung actual amount ng financial statements. And then, kung merong significant difference, so, we will conduct more extensive kasi i-hit natin yan na mataas yung risk for that certain account. Pero, there is significant difference. What if there is no significant difference? So, pag naman, less extensive naman yung magiging audit procedures natin. So, kapag sinabing less extensive, meaning mababa yung risk dyan. So, kahit hindi na natin i-audit. Usually, pag nasa testing phase na tayo, magkakonduct lang tayo ng analytical procedure for that account. Pero sa standard testing o yung test of details, di na natin gagawin. Of course, inquiring of management, mag-i-inquire lang naman tayo sa management natin. So, we will conduct some questions or we will ask some questions. Para at least, malaman natin yung, ma-assess natin yung risk na meron dun sa client natin. And aside from inquiry or asking inquiries sa client natin, we can also observe and inspect the initial documents. So, after nun, you can now document the audit plan. So, ano po ba yung audit plan na tinatawag? So, audit plan is an overview of the expected scope and conduct of the audit. So, the overall audit plan sets out in broad terms the nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedures to be performed. Since nalaman na natin yung acceptable level of detection risk, makakagawa na po tayo ng audit plan. Kung saan ilalatag na natin doon, ano yung magiging nature ng audit procedures natin, ano yung extent, pati na rin yung timing. Also, gagawa rin po tayo ng audit program. Kung saan, dito naman, dinedevelop na and dinadocument natin yung pagsa-set out ng nature, timing, and extent ng planned audit procedures na required to implement the overall audit plan. So, si audit program, so it executes the audit strategy. So it set out in detail the audit procedures to be performed in each segment of the audit. So yung audit program, it will serve as a set of instruction to assistants involved in the audit and as a means to control and record the proper execution of the work. So the form and content of the audit program may vary for each particular engagement, but it should always include a detailed list of audit procedures that the auditor believes are necessary to accomplish the audit objectives. And lastly, we also do time budget. Kasi 'di ba, limited lang po ang oras natin. So dahil dyan, we will make estimate of the time that will be spent in executing the audit procedures listed in the audit program. Usually po, in reality, hindi naman po nasusunod ang time budget. Eme-eme lang yan, para lang meron yan sa working paper natin. Kasi, mahirap din masabi na for ito lang i-allocate natin time sa pag-audit ng certain account. Kasi maming factors. Pwedeng ang problema si client. O di kaya, nahihirapan tayo makaroon ng access sa information or documents. Pwede rin, hindi natin inaasahan, sobrang dami pala ng kailangang i-audit. So, dahil doon, hindi natin na-achieve yung time budget or yung estimate time na naka-allocate para ma-execute natin yung mga audit procedures. But still, ginagawa po yan and dinadocument po yan. Nasa working paper po itong time budget. So, sa time budget po, yan din magpo-provide ng basis for estimating audit fees and assist the auditor in assessing the efficiency of the assistants. So, always remember, planning is a continuous throughout the engagement, meaning they may be subject to changes. So, kung sakaling meron tayong makitang changes, then yung overall audit plan and program natin must be accordingly amended. So, it is necessary na bago natin siya or ma-amend natin siya based dun sa reason kung bakit natin siya babaguhin.